Let's dig deeper on this now with John Miller. He's a CNN chief law enforcement and intelligence analyst. We also have Misty Marris, a trial and defense attorney. Thank you both for being with us. Misty, first to you. I'm struck by the fact that Mangione changed out of that orange jumpsuit, and he's now wearing street clothes, apparently dressed kind of a bit like a prepster. He's wearing like a white button-down shirt, a navy pullover, khaki pants. Why would his attorneys have him change before going into federal court?
Well, this was very interesting today because the federal government generally doesn't do what we call a perp walk, but that is what we saw happening from that helipad all the way to the courthouse. So it's likely that his attorneys made a request that he is able to appear not in that orange jumpsuit. Part of that can be to avoid prejudice down the line. Very often that type of thing can matter, that they don't want the person to be viewed as guilty before stepping into trial. It is absolutely an attorney's request that was made, that was granted by the judge in this instance.
And John, talk about this perp walk that we're watching here. It was extraordinary.
Well, it certainly is a spectacle, but it was one by design. First of all, you have the NYPD transporting him from Pennsylvania. They are met there by the FBI, who is going to take him into custody and accompany him to that U.S. magistrate's courtroom where they're going to talk about the charges he's facing. But you also have a really unusual defendant here, who is someone who usually when they surround somebody with this kind of security and protection, it's because they feel that somebody may try to attack them for what they have done. In this case, the security around him is really for the opposite, which is they believe that there is so much support that they've seen online and additional calls to free Luigi, that they wanted to have a phalanx of people, a motorcade with its own emergency service team with long guns in terms of a counter-assault team, motorcycles to clear the route so that nobody tried to free Luigi. That's what you're seeing in one regard. What you're seeing in another regard is the other piece of this, which is they wanted to demonstrate that this person is in custody, is in the custody of the New York City Police Department, the FBI's Violent Crime Task Force with the FBI and NYPD together, and that he is being brought to justice. But those two factors combined for the scene we saw here. The fact that the mayor, a former police captain, was present, I think was key, because he is also sending a message to New Yorkers that this kind of thing won't be tolerated and there will be justice.
We are following our breaking news here. The first federal court appearance for healthcare CEO murder suspect Luigi Mangione has just concluded.
Back with us now, John Miller is CNN's chief law enforcement and intelligence analyst, and Misty Marris is a trial and defense attorney. Before we pick up where Shimon just left off a moment ago, I do want to point out we're anticipating that Mangione's attorneys will be walking out of the courthouse shortly and speaking to the press. We saw a bouquet of microphones stationed out there.
Not speaking.
They're actually not
just
speaking
learned,
to the press.
yes.
We just literally just learned that as I said that.
In our ears.
Great. So that bouquet of microphones is essentially useless. Let's collect those and move on and get to Misty and John. Misty, I wonder what you make of what Karen Agnifilo, Mangione's attorney, said, talking about seeking clarity, and specifically the question of her alluding to potential double jeopardy facing these federal charges along with the state charges for her client.
I guess we won't be hearing from her, but absolutely, Boris, that is where this is going. The legal team is teeing this up to argue that these federal charges violate a criminal defendant's constitutional right of double jeopardy, meaning that you can't be charged with the same crime twice. Now, there's a Supreme Court case right on point. A criminal defendant can be charged with a state crime and a federal crime so long as that individual violated a state statute and a federal statute. So that's what we have here. This is proceeding on two different legal theories. On the federal level, it relates to this interstate transit stalking resulting in murder, that crossing of the state lines is taking in the criminal complaint to bring this into the federal court system. The state obviously relating to those terrorism and furtherance of terrorism charges. But that's not going to stop the defense team from raising the argument and trying to get rid of pretrial the federal charges and saying and probing, as we heard about in the courtroom, as to the genesis of these federal charges? Are there concurrent investigations that are going on? So that's where this is going. Another thing I think to point out, there had always been a question of whether or not there would be a competency argument. Competency means, does a defendant understand the charges against them and is able to participate in their own defense? We see now in the courtroom that Mangione was asked, does he understand the charges? He said yes. So it doesn't appear that that issue is going to be raised, but we can expect a real fight on that double jeopardy component.
Yeah, we'll be watching for that.